Okay, before we move on to additional sculpting and some changes and perhaps switching the underlying base mesh, I would like to just go through the changes that we've done, and I would like, I guess, to talk a little bit about the thought process behind it. I mean, precisely why I've made certain things the way they are, and to compare. Luckily, I had the morph targets stored, so we can switch back and forth and we can check the difference. So this is before. This is the composition from the 3D scans. I've cleaned up everything in here in my tool panel, so I don't get confused as to what is what. And this is where we are. And this is the the kind of stylization I was talking about. So it's neither a Pixar, right? It's not so simplistic, but it's not necessarily super realistic either, except for the legs, because this is the only area I would say that I didn't modify that much. I was using solely the move brush, and I haven't done anything in here in terms of tightening things up just a little bit. So the legs, they are quite realistic, but everything else is somewhat stylized, right? Again, to compare, this is where we are, and the silhouette will show it even more. Okay, so to talk about the stylization, or I guess to talk about the forms, it's on the one hand, it's very, very subjective, right? So it's almost to the point that it's impossible to point out something that I've done here, because, well, that's just my taste, my imagination, my knowledge and my skill, even probably my muscle memory driving all of those changes. But nonetheless, there is something that we can still somewhat point out. So the way I think about organic surfaces, the way I think about characters or creatures, is the tightness, I guess, the harmony of muscles, of the shapes, is reached not through definition as such of those shapes or forms, but it's more about the connection of those things together. And so what I'm trying to say is that what I was doing in here is I was mostly trying to create, think of it as a layer of honey or layer of rubber or something, like melting rubber on top of the characters. So everything here is looking very, very tight, right? So there is no bigger shapes like that, even though this is fine, this can be used and can be done. It's just, what I'm trying to say is that nothing really sticks out like that, right? Nothing really sticks out like that. I'm exaggerating for the sake of explaining things. It can be most I guess clearly seen on the feet, because we haven't done any stylization in here, and if we look at the feet, everything here is wobbly, which is fine. I mean, it's still quite attractive looking element in here, right? There are quite a few things happening in here, different shapes, different things. But if I was to make it quote unquote more organic, or just the way I prefer organic shapes to look, I would do precisely what I've done everywhere on the model. So I would go back to the lower subdivision level, maybe layer 2 or something, level 2 or something like that, and then with the clay brush I would fill in the gaps, right? So just with bigger strokes I would literally eliminate all of the smaller things, and this way I'm, like I said, it's like a layer of honey or something thick that I'm feeling the crevices with, right? And at the same time I am maintaining the bigger shapes. I don't want this to look completely flat. Like, I don't want it to be this, even though this is this is quite interesting as well, but I still want to have bigger shapes, right? That's why clay brush with low intensity is so useful, because it keeps the bigger shapes, it just fills the gaps for the most part, right? So this is the way I guess approach the kind of stylization that I personally enjoy doing and personally find to be very pleasing to the eye and very attractive. And to better illustrate what I mean, we can look at two artists that I personally find to be well, the best when it comes to form execution. So one of them is from Renaissance, and the other artist is contemporary. So it's quite interesting that I'm putting them together, Michelangelo, and then there's Carlos Huante. So let's begin with, I guess, with the master. So Michelangelo, if we look at some of the images, and if you're familiar with Michelangelo's work, you will notice that his drawings and his paintings, they are quite different from his sculptures. The paintings, they are more exaggerated for the most part. They are like studies, right? Well, that's kind of what they are. They are just studies, right? We can see how lumpy things are in here, for example, and maybe that's because the muscles that he was looking at in a dissected body, maybe that's how they were looking, but it's kind of wobbly, right? Everything in here is just it's not exactly clean or straight, which is not a critique. It's just something to be mindful of. So for example, this image in here, everything is very, very lumpy, right? We can see certain muscles sticking out, which is again is not a critique at all. Everything here is very beautiful, very very attractive. It's just that to me this is more about different medium, right? This is at the same on the one hand this is sketching and studying, on the other hand this is doing things on a specific within a specific medium, which is drawing, which is 2D, which is a piece of paper and a pencil, right? So here it's almost the same situation. We see how lumpy everything is in here, like lines, just half a sphere or something like that everywhere, right? Rarely we see a continuous line. For example, here that might be one continuous line, but at the same time we can see something here. So it looks like he was trying to almost capture everything by memory and muscle memory, so he knows exactly where muscles are located. Like, look at this lump, right? This is almost alien looking, right? Some kind of entity sticking out. But we are talking about Michelangelo. It's not like he was making some big mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, right? To me, this is there was a specific goal behind this. I'm not sure. Well, this is not Michelangelo. I don't think. I've never seen him doing this kind of style, I guess. But it might be. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's a study of his sculpture. Whatever it is. For some reason, it's here. The same situation, right? Lumpy, bumpy, and even the most famous painting of his, I guess, or at least a part of it, the characters in here, figures in here, they're quite lumpy as well. But there is one drawing that I love, I absolutely love, and I think this is the closest to his sculptures. Well, the closest one I can find at the very least. And here we can see a very different image altogether. If we look at them, especially side by side, we can see just how smoother everything is. Obviously, the rendering is different, the final execution is different. There is still some lumpiness here and there, but the overall feeling, and this is the most important thing, the feeling that we get, the sensation that we get when we look at this, is that everything is really tight. It's not sharp, right? It's I'm lost for words because I don't really know how to explain this thing that I'm trying to capture in my sculpt as well. But this is the essence of it, I guess. It's the smoothness, the tightness without the sharpness. The sharpness comes from from something else. The sharpness comes from the sense of harmony, of everything just clicking, just things just connecting. So here, if we look at for example, the leg, look how smooth it is, right? Even though there are muscles, and Michelangelo put those muscles everywhere, right? We can see here, for example, there is a muscle in there. We can see some separations in here, some separations in there. But here, the surface is smoother, but we don't read it as something boring. We read it as something very fleshy, very organic in nature. And this is the whole... the whole figure is done in this manner, and to me this is I guess the most crucial thing when it comes to organic sculpting. This is something that like I said, I want to try and capture in my own sculpts, because I find this to be just incredibly attractive. Maybe that's a too shallow of a description, but this is what I'm personally aiming at, to find the beauty in the execution, right? If we're talking about purely the aesthetics, like this is what I find to be the most attractive aesthetics that they can be when it comes to figurative sculpture. And so when it comes to Carlos Huante, so like I said, he's a contemporary artist. He worked on the Godzilla movies, he worked on Men in Black movies, and even though this is very, very different, I mean, Carlos is more into creatures and monsters, and he rarely does quote-unquote normal-looking figures, right? He's just working in a different environment altogether, I would say. But the essence in here is the same. If we look at this example, we see just how tight everything is, but at the same time, we don't really see the sharpness as such, right? We don't really see dark lines like we see here. This line is for separation, but we don't see it in here, even though the feeling that we get is still sharp, right? The amount of detail is a lot. There's a lot of things going on in here, but it's very, very, very organic in nature, without the crazy exaggerated darkening, without crazy separation of things. Everything is just melts, right? So this almost feels like a piece of rubber, right? And this is what I said about the technique that I was using when I was working on the sculpt, is that lay on top of the muscles, on top of what I had with the sculpt, I'm putting a layer of something else, right, to make things just tighter, like we see here. And so this is everywhere when it comes to Carlos. At least that's the way I analyze his work. With everything here is just clicking. So for example, the pec muscle in here, look just how well it reads. I mean, just try to maybe sense whatever it is that you're feeling when you look at this body. If you are organic, if you are sculpting something organic, if you enjoy doing organic sculptures, just try and feel something when you look at it. And the feeling is that it's something very, very good. It's again, I'm just lost for words, because I don't want to sound so shallow, but it's just that without exaggerating the muscle itself, without separating it that much, we still get a sense of power. We still get a sense of anatomy. We get the sense of everything being in place, right? And everything is moving. Everything is alive and dynamic. So if we go and look for another example, and let me fetch it real quick. This is Michelangelo. This is one of his dying slaves sculptures. I think this is pure scan, and the reason why I'm saying I think is because if you find those scans of famous sculptures, be very mindful of the reproduction it's probably not the right word when it comes to digital space, but sometimes those scans, they're being worked by the people, or maybe different artists or different people who did the scanning itself. So here I think everything was left as is, without anybody meddling with the actual data that we see here. So if we analyze the actual 3D, or I guess sculpture of Michelangelo, we will notice everything that I've said about his the last drawing that we looked at, right? Especially in here, even though this is well, I want to say lumpy. It's not lumpy, but there is something in here, right? There's a shape in here, there's a shape in here, there's a shape in here, and in here, and then there's in here, but none of those shapes stick out. If you get what I mean, everything here is very tight, right? There's nothing of this nature in here. There's no separation of that sort, something that we might see very commonly on digital sculpture, some crazy wild separation of musculature, right, like that. And the feeling that we get when we see something like that is something artificial, even though there might be a situation where we do see this kind of separation, right, where the arm, for example, is flexing. In my experience with just trying to get to the essence of organic sculpting, I guess, organic sculptures, is that the separation between muscles, the separation between shapes is not so stark. It's actually very soft and very smooth, the transitioning between things. It's not the sharp transition that dam standard, for example, can give us. What we see instead is just a shadow. So if we look here, for example, this is just a shadow, right? If we look from this angle, look how smooth the transition is between here and here, right? So we might get tricked by trying to make things just super sharp and super separated, right? So every single muscle of the abdomen to be separated like that, then separation in here, then I don't know, separation somewhere in here. But in reality, well, not in reality, but if we examine and analyze the work by the genius or geniuses, we will notice that in fact things are much smoother. It's not the way that things are separated in terms of techniques. It's the way things are connected together. It's the subtleness of things, right? The harmony of things. So, for example, here the leg is almost smooth from this angle, right? But from this angle, we get to see the muscles. We get to see everything, which is very elegant and very, very smooth. So this is, like I said, this is what I've been trying to do here, right? This is why I'm using the clay brush. So this way I can fill in the bigger shapes, the bigger gaps, and put everything more into a harmony of some sort. And this also drives the silhouette as well, the way I handle the silhouette. So from this view, if we go back to the original, to the sculpts, the separations that we see here, for example, from the trapezius to the shoulder muscles and down we go, right? The separations are they're natural to some extent, right? We definitely can, and we'll definitely see that on real people, right? So for example, here this is a real scan, and we definitely see some separation, but it's still smoother. The separation is somewhat smoother. And what I'm trying to do here, because it's a stylized character after all, I'm trying to almost eliminate all of the sharper corners, right? All this sharper exaggeration, or I guess extrusion of things. So here the silhouette is very smooth, everything is going and flowing nicely down. Here we don't really see the muscles being separated like that, even though I might do it later, depending on depending on where I go. But I'm trying to minimize this, or if I am doing that, I'm looking at the way things are connecting.